I watched them cry. My husband, my daughter, my best friend. Each of them clutching tissues pretending their grief was pure. They believed I was buried 6 feet under, rotting beneath the red clay of Atlanta's earth. But I was right there. In the last pew, dressed in black, face half hidden under a wide-brimmed hat. The organ hummed softly, the preacher's voice echoing like distant thunder. In loving memory of Emma Louise Carter, devoted wife, mother, and friend. My own name pierced through the church like a blade. They said it as if I were gone forever. And for a second I almost believed it too. But no, Emma Carter didn't die that night. She just disappeared. From where I sat, I could see my husband, William, holding my daughter's hand. His jaw was tight. His eyes are dry. Not a single tear. I had known him for 35 years. I'd seen him cry over a broken car before, but not for me. And that's when I realized the funeral wasn't for me. It was for their guilt. I'd been running for months, hiding under borrowed names, staying in cheap motels. I'd lost weight, changed my hair, changed my voice. But nothing could hide the truth that burned in my chest. Someone had tried to kill me, and that someone was sitting in the front row. As the choir began to sing Amazing Grace, I felt a tear slide down my cheek. Not for sorrow, but for the life I was about to reclaim. Because I didn't come back to watch. I came back for answers. And maybe for revenge. It happened on a Thursday night. Rain slammed against the windows of our suburban house, and thunder rolled like a restless spirit. William had been pacing for an hour, his phone lighting up every few minutes, a name flashing that I'd never seen before. A Turner. I should have known then. But love makes fools of smart women. He turned to me, voice sharp but calm. "Emma, you've been spending too much lately," he said, swirling the whiskey in his glass. I frowned. "Spending? William, that's my consulting money. You know that." But his gaze, cold, empty, told me he wasn't really talking about money. "You think I don't know what you've been doing?" he said, stepping closer. There was something new in his tone, hatred. Before I could answer, lightning flashed and I saw it. A small syringe on the counter behind him. Not ours. Not mine. "William, what is that?" He smiled. A calm, chilling smile. "You always ask too many questions, Emma." The next thing I remember was the smell of burning metal and bleach, and the world fading into darkness. When I woke up, I was lying in the woods. Cold. Soaked. Mud clung to my hands. My head throbbed and my pulse barely moved. I saw a shovel. Fresh earth. They had buried me. A flash of headlights cut through the trees. 2 men stood by the grave. I recognized one, my husband. The other was a stranger. "She won't be found," the stranger said. William replied quietly. "She already was." And just like that they drove away, leaving me for dead. But God or fate had other plans. I crawled through the rain, half conscious, dragging my body until I reached the highway. A truck driver named Sam found me before dawn. He said I looked like I'd crawled out of hell. He wasn't wrong. That night Emma Carter died. And someone else, someone stronger, was born. When I opened my eyes again, the world smelled like gasoline and rain. I was lying on a truck seat, wrapped in an old army blanket. My clothes were wet, my hair plastered to my face. And then I heard his voice, deep, steady, with the kind of kindness that doesn't ask questions. "You're safe now, ma'am," he said. "You're lucky I take the long route." I tried to speak, but my throat burned. Where am I?" "About 10 miles outside Greenville," he said, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "Name's Sam. You've been through hell, huh?" I didn't answer. My reflection in the glass scared me, pale, bruised, with dirt under my fingernails. I looked like a ghost. He offered me a thermos. "Drink this. Hot coffee. You look like you need to remember you're human." For the first time since that night, I felt warmth spread through me. Not just from the coffee, from the realization that I was alive. He didn't press me for details, but his eyes said he wanted to. So I gave him part of the truth. "I was in an accident," I whispered. He nodded slowly. "And somebody wanted to make sure you didn't walk away from it?" I looked at him, started. He didn't smile. "Seen that kind of thing before," he said softly. "People do ugly things when money, power, or pride are involved." He drove me to a small roadside motel. He paid for the room himself. "Stay low," he said. "Whatever happened, you need rest. Then you figure out what comes next." Before leaving, he handed me his card, Sam Rivers Long Haul Freight. If you ever need to disappear for a while, he said, I know places. That night I sat on the bed, staring at my reflection in the cracked mirror. The woman looking back wasn't Emma Carter anymore. She was someone else, someone who had crawled out of her own grave. I took a deep breath and whispered, You buried the wrong woman, William. And in that dim motel light, a plan began to form, quiet, dangerous, and unstoppable. The sky was gray that morning, the kind of gray that doesn't cry, just watches. I wore a borrowed coat, a cheap wig, and sunglasses too large for my face. Sam's old truck left me a block away from St. Mary's Church. From there I walked. Every step felt heavier, like the earth wanted to pull me back down. When I reached the gates, I froze. Black cars lined the street. A sea of umbrellas shimmered under the cold drizzle. My name, Emma Carter, was printed in bold letters on the memorial banner. It was my funeral. I stood among strangers who mourned a ghost. Whispers drifted through the crowd. She was such a kind woman. She didn't deserve what happened. Her husband's taking it hard. Her husband, William Carter, stood at the front, dressed in his perfect black suit, hand clutching a folded handkerchief, just enough to look broken. But I saw it. That flicker in his eyes, relief, not grief. The same look he had the night I died. Beside him stood her, a young woman in a fitted black dress, head bowed, too close to him, too familiar. The woman he thought no one knew about. I clenched my fist inside my coat pocket. My breath came sharp and cold. From the back row, an old friend of mine, Gloria, dabbed her eyes with a tissue. She was too good for this world, she whispered to the person beside her. I wanted to scream, I'm still here. But the words never left my lips. When the pastor spoke my name, I looked at the casket. A smooth mahogany box. Closed. Heavy. Empty. Inside it was not me, but everything they thought they'd buried. As the choir began to sing Amazing Grace, I turned away, my tears lost in the rain. And for the first time I smiled. Let them mourn. Let them believe their lies. Because ghosts can do what the living cannot. They can watch. They can wait. And when the time is right, they can return. That night I sat in the dim light of Sam's old cabin, the sound of rain tapping against the window like impatient fingers. On the table before me, a folded piece of paper I'd stolen from my lawyer's office the week before. It wasn't just any paper. It was my will. Or rather, the version William had forced the lawyer to rewrite after I fell down the stairs. I unfolded it slowly, tracing the words I once signed with trust, not knowing they would be used to erase me. Upon my death, all assets, including the family home and business shares, shall transfer to William Carter, my devoted husband. Devoted husband. The words tasted like poison. I laughed, a bitter, cracked sound that scared even me. But below that, barely visible, was a second signature line, smudged, faint. Witnessed by Gloria Harris. Gloria. My oldest friend. The one who thought I was dead. She had signed this will months ago, but she didn't know what William had added after. And there in the margins was something strange. A small handwritten note, half erased. Original copy held by E.M. Safety Deposit Box number 237, First Union Bank. My heart skipped. That was me. Which meant the real will was still out there. The one I'd written before William began whispering threats in my ear. The one that gave everything to my daughter, Grace. I stood, grabbed my coat, and looked out the window. The world thought Emma Carter was gone, but Emma was about to reclaim her life. Tomorrow I would visit that bank. Tomorrow I would find the truth. And William Carter would learn that the dead don't rest, not when justice calls. I closed the will, tucked it inside my coat, and whispered to the night. You buried me once, William. Try it again. The rain outside grew heavier, almost like applause. The rain hadn't stopped by morning. By the time I reached the city, my coat was soaked, my hands trembling not from cold but from fear. Fear of seeing her. Grace. My daughter. My heartbeat in human form. She worked at the community clinic on 7th Avenue. The same clinic I had helped fund years ago. When I stepped inside, the sterile smell of disinfectant mixed with the scent of coffee and faint lavender. She was there behind the counter, her curls pulled into a tight bun, her eyes tired yet beautiful. She looked so much like me. And yet she looked right through me. Can I help you? she asked politely, not recognizing the woman her father had buried. My throat tightened. I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times, but now the words turned to dust. I need to speak with Dr. Grace Carter, I whispered. Her eyebrows furrowed. That's me. Do I know you? For a second I almost lied. Said I was a stranger, a patient, a ghost passing by. But then something broke inside me. I took off my hood. My gray hair, streaked with white and rain, clung to my face. Her eyes widened, confusion, disbelief, then fear. No. This isn't funny. My mother is dead. I saw her coffin lowered into the ground. I stepped closer. Then tell me, Grace. Why do you still wear her necklace? Her hand flew to the gold locket on her chest. The one I'd given her the day before William's accident. She backed away, shaking. No. No, you can't be. I am, I said softly. They buried a lie. I'm here. Tears streamed down her face. A mixture of anger, love, and confusion. Where have you been? Why didn't you come to me? I reached for her hands, but she pulled away. Because, I said, someone wanted me gone. And they're still watching. Her voice cracked. Dad. I nodded. Her knees weakened. She sat heavily in the nearest chair. For a long moment there was only silence, the kind that weighs more than words ever could. Finally, Grace whispered, I think I know something. Something I wasn't supposed to see. I froze. What did you see, Grace? She looked towards the window, rain streaking down the glass, and then at me. The night you died, she said, her voice trembling. I saw Dad burning something in the fireplace. Papers. Your signature was on them. The room seemed to shrink. It wasn't just greed. It was premeditated. William didn't just want my silence. He wanted my erasure. I took her hands again. This time she didn't resist. We can't go to the police yet, I whispered. He still thinks I'm dead. That's our advantage. Grace looked up, her tears turning into something stronger, resolve. What do we do? I smiled faintly. We show him that ghosts can fight back. Outside, thunder rolled, distant but growing closer. For the first time in months I felt alive, truly alive. Not hidden, not hunted. Alive and dangerous. Grace sat beside me in the small apartment we now used as our hideout. Rain still fell against the window, like a metronome to our racing thoughts. We'll need proof, she said. Something solid. If we go to the police without it, he'll destroy us both. I nodded. He's done it before. He'll do it again. Grace hesitated. Mom, you don't think he killed anyone else, do you? I looked away. William was a man of control. Every word, every dollar, every person in his orbit served a purpose. And when something or someone became inconvenient, he erased it. I don't know, I whispered. But I intend to find out. We started small. Grace accessed the clinic's old financial records, tracing donations and insurance transfers connected to my foundation. Every trail led back to one name. William Carter Holdings, LLC. He had used my death as a business opportunity, cashing in life insurance, selling assets under false pretenses, laundering funds through shell charities. He didn't just kill his wife. He killed her legacy. That night, Grace and I drove past the old house, the one with the blue shutters and the magnolia tree I planted the year she was born. It still looked the same from the outside, but the windows felt colder. Through the curtains we saw William, laughing, pouring wine for another woman, a younger one. Her hand rested where mine once had. Grace's grip on the steering wheel tightened. Mom! I know, I whispered. Let him play his part. The show's not over yet. We parked 2 blocks away. I slipped on gloves, pulled up my hood, and walked back toward the house. Every step felt like walking through memory, through betrayal. The mailbox still had my name, Mrs. E. Carter. He hadn't even bothered to remove it. I slid a small recorder beneath the porch rail, voice activated, battery ready. Then another near his office window. Grace waited in the car, her eyes full of both fear and admiration. Are you sure you're ready for this? She asked as I returned. I looked back once at the house, the home I'd built, the grave he'd buried me in. Ready, I said. I've been ready since the day they lowered that coffin. The rain began to fall harder, lightning flashing in the sky like divine punctuation. That night, as we sat in silence, the recorder came alive. Faint at first, then unmistakable. William's voice. Low. Calculating. If she ever shows up, I'll finish what I started. Grace gasped. I closed my eyes. The ghost was no longer hiding. It was hunting. Sleep didn't come that night. Every word from William's voice recorder echoed in my mind. If she ever shows up, I'll finish what I started. Grace wanted to call the police. But I knew how deep William's influence ran. He had friends in uniforms, judges in his pocket, and money buried in every corner of the city. So we waited. We watched. And I planned. By morning, I had already traced one of his companies, a charity that funneled donations through my old foundation. The records didn't just show fraud. They showed names. Dozens of them. Victims like me silenced through debt, blackmail, or worse. William wasn't just my husband. He was a predator dressed as a philanthropist. I stared at the documents, hands trembling. He built his empire on other people's graves, I said quietly. Grace leaned closer, her eyes wide. What are we going to do? A bitter smile crossed my lips. We're going to bury him, this time for real. That evening, Grace and I drove to the city center. The annual Carter Foundation Gala was taking place, the same event I had once hosted every year. Now my ghost would be in attendance. Inside the hall, crystal chandeliers shimmered over silk gowns and tuxedos. William stood near the stage, smiling, charming. His hand intertwined with that young woman's. I stood at the back unnoticed, a shadow among the living. The irony was poetic. They all thought I was dead. Yet here I was watching their perfect illusion crack. The microphone squealed softly as William began to speak. He spoke of charity, hope, and his late wife's memory. Each word dripped with lies. But then something happened. The big screen behind him flickered once, twice, and then the video feed changed. My face appeared. The crowd gasped. Grace from the control booth played the footage we had prepared, the real story, the evidence, the recordings. William's voice filled the hall. If she ever shows up, I'll finish what I started. Chaos. Screams. Phones raised. Cameras flashing. William froze, pale and trembling. His charm vanished, replaced by raw fear. I stepped forward through the crowd. Every step echoed in the marble hall like thunder. He looked at me, eyes wide, disbelief turning into rage. You, he hissed. You're supposed to be dead. I'm interrupted. Yes, William. I was supposed to be. The room fell silent. All I could hear was the rain pounding outside, and my own heartbeat. I took a deep breath. You tried to take me. But you forgot one thing. The truth doesn't rot. Security moved in, but William lunged forward, desperate, broken. He grabbed my arm, voice shaking. Emma, please? We can fix this. I looked him in the eye. No, William. You can't fix what's already rotten. Police lights flashed through the windows. Someone had already called them. William was surrounded, his empire crumbling before his eyes. As they took him away in handcuffs, he looked back at me one last time. And for the first time in decades, I saw fear. Real fear. That night, I stood outside under the rain. The same rain that once hid me, now washing me clean. Grace came beside me, wrapped her arm around mine. It's over, Mom. I smiled faintly. No, sweetheart. It's just beginning. Because ghosts don't rest. They rise and they remember. The trial lasted 6 months. 6 long, draining months of testimonies, evidence, and whispered gossip in the hallways. The world finally knew who William Carter truly was. A manipulative businessman who had faked his wife's death and destroyed countless lives in the name of charity. But justice, I learned, wasn't clean. Came with scars. And it took pieces of you in return. I sat in the courtroom every day, front row. His lawyers tried everything, painting me as unstable, as a liar, as a grieving widow seeking revenge. But the recordings, the documents, the witnesses who finally found their voices, they spoke louder than his money ever could. On the day of the verdict, William refused to look at me. The judge's voice was calm, almost cold. Guilty on all counts. He didn't flinch. But I saw his jaw tighten. That same arrogance trying to survive even as his world collapsed. When they led him away, he finally turned his eyes towards me. There was no rage this time. Only defeat. After that day I thought I'd feel free. but freedom felt foreign. I would wake up at night, expecting the sound of footsteps in the hallway, or a door cracking open. Old fear doesn't vanish. It lingers quiet, waiting for your guard to drop. Grace moved in with me for a while. We redecorated the house, new paint, new furniture, even new curtains. But no matter how much I changed the walls, the air still carried memories. One afternoon, as sunlight filtered through the window, Grace placed an envelope in front of me. "Mom," she said softly, "this came for you." The handwriting stopped my breath. It was neat, familiar Williams. Inside was a letter written from prison. "Emma, you think you've won. But we both know you're just as trapped as I am. You can never outrun what you did, or who you became to survive me. You're W.C." My hands trembled, but I didn't cry. Not anymore. I took the letter, walked outside, and lit a match. The flame burned bright against the wind, consuming every word until it turned to ash. "I forgive you," I whispered. "Not for you, for me." Weeks passed. I started speaking at women's shelters, telling my story. Not as a victim, but as a survivor. Each time I spoke, I saw the same eyes looking back at me. Fear, pain, but also hope. I was supposed to stay buried, I'd tell them, but I chose to rise. And so can you. Grace filmed one of my talks and uploaded it online. Within a week, thousands watched it. Messages poured in. Strangers sharing their own stories, thanking me for speaking aloud what they couldn't. I never wanted fame. I wanted peace. But sometimes peace is born from purpose. And I finally had mine. One evening, months later, I stood by my husband's grave. The grass had grown over neatly, the nameplate polished by rain. William Carter, it read. Beloved husband, philanthropist, visionary. I knelt down and smiled sadly. They never changed it, I said quietly. Maybe it's better that way. Let the world remember the lie, and I'll live the truth. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky gold and crimson. For the first time in years, I felt the warmth not as a memory but as something real. As I turned to leave, a small breeze brushed past my cheek, gentle and cold. And I swear I heard a whisper behind me, faint, almost like a sigh. But I didn't look back. Some ghosts aren't meant to be chased. It had been a year since the trial. A year since my name was cleared, and the ghost of Emma Carter stopped haunting the headlines. I moved to a small house by the sea, a quiet place where the wind carried only the sound of waves and seagulls. Grace visited every weekend with her children, their laughter filling the silence that used to scare me. But even peace takes time to learn. For months I'd wake up before dawn, make tea, and sit by the window just listening to the world wake up. No noise, no fear, just stillness. One morning I found an old photograph while unpacking the last box I'd brought from the city. It was of me, William, and Grace before everything fell apart. We were standing in front of the house, smiling. The kind of smile that hides everything underneath. I stared at it for a long time. Then with trembling hands I tore the photo in half. But instead of throwing it away, I buried it in the garden, under the rose bush Grace had planted for me. "Let it rest," I whispered. "Let all of it rest." That afternoon, I received a call from the prison chaplain. He told me William had passed away the night before, a heart attack. For a long time I said nothing. Then only one word escaped my lips. "Thank you." Not for his death, but for the closure I never thought I'd get. I didn't attend the second funeral. I'd already buried him years ago, in the part of my heart that no longer existed. Instead, I went to the shore that evening. The sky was painted gold and violet, the sea calm like glass. I walked barefoot along the sand, the cool water washing over my feet. For the first time in my life I wasn't running. Grace joined me later, holding my hand. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "You did it, Mom. You really made it out." I smiled. "No, sweetheart. We did." She hugged me tightly, and in that embrace I felt everything, the years of pain, of fear, of silence, dissolve into something pure. Something free. That night I wrote in my journal for the last time. The same journal I'd started the night of my death. The pages were filled with scars and memories, but the final page, it was different. They thought I was buried, but I watched my family from the back row. And now I live among them again, not as a ghost, but as the woman I was always meant to be. I closed the journal, placed it on the windowsill, and smiled at the reflection in the glass. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who once hid in the shadows. Her hair was silver now, her eyes wiser, but she was alive. Truly alive. The waves crashed gently in the distance, and I whispered, "The storm didn't break me. It revealed who I was." As the moon rose above the water, I felt something shift inside me. Peace at last. The story of Emma Carter didn't end in a coffin. It ended in rebirth.